One of the biggest things people worry about when investing in farmland or agricultural rural land is knowing what land they should buy. When looking at Zillow or when they're going on tours with a real estate agent, they don't know how to decipher between a good land deal and a bad land deal. So for me, this was my fifth real estate transaction, buying the 6.74 acres of rural land I now own. I got it with a loan through Farm Credit East, which I break down here on this channel. With this being my fifth real estate transaction, I knew more than the average person when it came to deciding if I wanted to put an offer in on this land, but I would by no means say I am an expert at it. I have just developed a system that works for me, going through good investments and bad investments. One bad investment being I lost my house to Hurricane Ian in Florida in 2022. Thank God I had insurance. Can talk about that in another video. In this video, I'm going to break down my checklist that I needed this land to satisfy in order for me to buy it. This should better help anyone who is thinking about buying land, starting a farm, starting a farming business, getting into the business of agriculture, whatever it might be. Which brings me to the number one thing that was most important for me when buying this land was checking the flood maps. I checked all of the maps as well as the FEMA flood maps to see if occasionally this land floods, it doesn't flood. I experienced that with my house. You do not want to buy land that floods. And with weather getting more extreme around the world, if you think an area is possibly prone to flooding, do not do it. My property is up a very large hill near the Hudson River. I am not on the Hudson River. I am a safe distance away from it, that the property has never flooded. If you're wondering how I found this information, you just Google the flood maps for the county or the town. Something will come up. And if you can't find that information, you can always call the town. There are people paid by your tax dollars to sit in that town office and retrieve these types of documents and information for you. So do not be shy in calling them up. Call the town clerk, the town office, whatever it might be. The second thing that was a non-negotiable for me is having the land come with at least one utility. This was my first rodeo with buying undeveloped property. I did not want to attempt having a well drilled, getting electric, and having a septic tank put in all at the same time. I wanted to at least have one of those three things already done. With this property, the well had already been drilled and installed. So that was a big selling point for me, knowing that I had to handle getting the electric and getting the septic tank. Not knowing what I was doing with either of those, but I figured, you know what? If I already know there's water, if I already know there's a well, I can take this on. And thank God there was already a well, because having electric brought to my property was a very interesting process that I will break down again more on this channel for you guys. But I would recommend, if you are buying undeveloped land and you've never done any of this before, I would try and find land that does have at least one of those three utilities, or if you're planning to do solar so you don't need to have the electric brought. I just would not take on all three of those things cold turkey. The third thing that was important to me was having this property be within 20 minutes of a smaller city center, because I always wanted to have some type of public element to the business or businesses that I ran here. I've always been interested in education, tours, agro-tourism. I always saw myself giving tours here, possibly teaching, which is actually coming together hopefully for next year, and I will share more about that. But I wanted there to be consumers within 20 minutes of my farm. You absolutely can go buy rural land that is 90 minutes away from everyone if you want to do that, but you do have to keep in mind who's going to be buying your stuff, where do they live, do they have the money to buy your stuff? These are all things you want to consider when buying this property. I understand the urge to escape society and never see human beings ever again, but human beings have money and human beings spend that money at your business. So you do want to keep that in mind. The next thing after that was important to me, being a small solo female, is that I felt that this property was safe or in a safe area. So how do you determine that? You can pull crime maps for any given region or county. You can look up the tax map for the county and get the names and a lot of personal information about neighbors, just so you know. And you can put their names into different registries and lists. If you get where I'm going with this, I don't want this video to get banned, so I'm not going to say what I'm saying, but you can look up the people that surround your property to just be sure that they are normal humans that don't have records and don't pose a risk to your safety. The next thing that was important to me, because I am a lady at the end of the day, is that I wanted it to be pretty. I wanted it to have mountain views. I don't know if you can see, they look small in this video. That's the Taconic Range. And the Adirondacks are behind me, and on a clear day, you can see them. And you can even see Vermont, the Green Mountains in the distance on a clear day as well. And that's important to me. I want there to be an element of prettiness, of beauty. I want to pull up to my farm and feel like I'm looking at breathtaking views that make me excited to be here. I sometimes think people think to get into farming it's going to be this really hard, ugly, sloppy boots on, non-glamorous lifestyle. And don't get me wrong, I've spent about 3 hours today scooping rabbit and chicken poop, so that is absolutely part of it. But I don't think there's any harm in wanting there to be beauty and wanting your outfit to look nice while you're at your farm. I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think there can be an element of class meets the rural ruggedness of farming. So beauty was important to me. I thought this land was gorgeous. It's hilly. It was beautiful. It has all this prairie, flowers, and just the second I saw it, I fell in love with it. And that's how you should feel about the land you buy. That it should not be this forced transaction where you're like, unsure about it. It should be an instant click. That's why you should get out of your car when you are shopping for land for your farm. I would not recommend doing it sight unseen. Get out of your car and walk around the land, get a feel for the energy. The land is a living entity and it's either going to click with you or it's not. So you're going to want to get out on this land, walk around, touch the land, observe it, listen to it, and see if it clicks with you. Kind of reminds me of the wands in Harry Potter when they go into the wand shop, like the wand chooses the wizard. That's kind of the case with your land. It will choose you if you are meant to work the land. Another thing that was important for me is I knew I wanted a couple acres. I knew I didn't want any more than 10 acres. I was aware that was way too much land for me to handle, again, with this being my first rodeo. I did see online if you want to get certain tax breaks, tax credits, some states have acreage minimums that vary between 4 to 7 acres. So for New York State, a lot of the programs start at 7 acres. I have 6.74, but I did read that if you write to them and say, hey, I'm only a quarter of an acre away from meeting that 7 acre minimum, most of the time they'll go, no problem. Look that up. If you're looking to be tax exempt for different things, just look up if there's an acreage minimum in your state. It does vary. For a lot of other things, though, there is no acreage minimum. So my recommendation would be start smaller than you think. Okay. I thought I wanted 10 acres. I barely use my 7 acres. It's huge. You need an ATV if you have 7 acres. A lot of people think, oh, I want 50 acres. I want 30 acres. I want 70 acres. Are you sure about that? That is a ton of property. That's like impossible to walk. Hard to keep an eye on all of it. If you're going to fence it in or something like that, very expensive. I would recommend starting small. So 6.74 acres was perfect to me. That was a perfect amount of land. Again, I don't even need all 6.74 acres. You don't probably need 7 acres either, to tell you the truth. I mainly use about 1 acre of my 7 acres, which is great because then I'm leaving a lot of it wild for nature and establishing a pollinator oasis, gardening, all of that here in the USDA is going to help me do that, which I will be documenting here as well. Last 2 things that I checked. Number 1, if you are going to be in agricultural areas where a lot of farming is going on, you want to check the types of farms you are near. So I am near a sawmill down the road. There's a sand pit business, an excavation business, a couple houses down, and a greenhouse business even further down. I have seen some horror stories about people who are unaware that they've purchased property next to a hog processing farm and they can occasionally hear the cries of the hogs or see blood in the air. Not for me. I love animals. That would be my worst nightmare. No hate to people who process meat as a farmer. As long as you're doing it humanely and sustainably, I'm cool with it. I don't want to hear that though. So you do want to look up, if you are shopping in farming areas, people are farming near you, as they should be. You want to check out what types of farming are they doing? Are you cool with it? Are you not cool with it? Just stuff like that. And again, you can easily figure this out from opening up Google Maps or just a simple Google search, or as I always recommend doing, drive around every road within 5 minutes of your property, because you have no idea if 2 roads down, there's somebody inhumanely treating horses or something like that. You don't want to be near that bad juju. Trust me, that stuff like permeates the ground. You just don't want to be near that. And then the final most important thing is you want to be sure when you are buying this land that it is zoned rural or agriculture. It is zoned for either of those things. Sometimes I have learned those terms are used interchangeably. So if you see a Zillow listing and it says zoned rural and you're going, oh, I wonder if it's zoned for ag, that could actually mean it is zoned for ag. How are you going to get clarification on this? You can talk to the real estate agent. I have seen, hang on though, they don't know necessarily, the real estate agents. They could put the incorrect zoning information on the land just to get a sale. I've seen that. I've seen horror stories go on at these planning board meetings where people were under the impression they were buying a certain kind of land because someone wanted to make a sale and they never actually looked up the zoning map or called the zoning officer in their town. I called the zoning officer when I saw this was zoned ag. I just needed to triple check. Called him up and said, is it indeed zoned ag? What does that mean for me? What am I allowed to do on the property? I wouldn't say he was the most helpful person when I called him up. I was persistent. I didn't care. I kept asking him these questions. He eventually spit out that with my zoned ag land, it is zoned for up to 2 structures. So I could have a barn, I could also have a house. That's what I love about zoned ag land. It's like a combo of zoned commercial and zoned residential all together. That's what you love about it. You can run a business on it, make money on it, farm on it, eat off of it, live off of it. Amazing. It's the rolled all into one zoning. It's my favorite kind of zoning. But yeah, when I talked to the town, for example, he told me my land was zoned for up to 4 large animals, which is very random, very arbitrary. If you look up the town charter, there is a land acreage minimum that is required for a large animal. So I guess it's not random, but again, just call up the zoning person. You want to triple check before you put it in an offer, because the real estate agent could be lying to you. No hate to real estate agents. I've never had a real estate agent do that to me, but I have heard horror stories. And last thing, look up the zoning map for your county, pull it up. If you're in an old school farming area, that zoning map might not be online, but it will be in the town offices. So just call them up and say, I'm coming in. Somebody show me a physically printed out zoning map of this area. I want to see what everything is zoned for. Sometimes towns aren't so cooperative with this stuff. Maybe at least if you're in the Northeast, they're not. They owe you all this information. They can't withhold it from you. So just call them up. Again, it's their job. They're paid with your tax dollars to help you with this stuff, to answer this information. It is a public space. The town board, town offices is a public space. You are allowed to enter it, usually between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. every day. Don't let them intimidate you. With that, I hope you guys found this video helpful. I definitely have no regrets about the land that I ended up purchasing that houses this beautiful barn on it now. You can hear people going by on the road, which I have no problem with, because if they go by on the road, that means they will shop at my farm stand. So you definitely want to strike a good balance between there being humans in the vicinity so that they can spend money at your farm, and then also feeling slightly isolated. If you're buying rural land, you're already going to be neighboring other people who have at least 5 or 7 acres, so you're not going to have an issue with no privacy. I would recommend being within 20 minutes of a place that holds people, yuppies, millennials, that will come to your farm and spend money on your products. Okay, with that, you guys probably can't even tell it's near freezing outside right now. I thought if I just stood in the sun, it would make it feel a little better for this video, which it kind of did. It is going to be 19 degrees tonight though, so I cannot feel my hands, so I'm going to go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I have so much more content coming your way. $24 trillion worth of farmland is about to be for sale in our country, so if you've ever dreamed of doing this, now is the time.